Q&A number 5. Let's get started.
Hey man, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you can give to a drummer trying to make it in life by doing drums?
It's a really difficult question to answer with just one big piece of advice because there's a lot of different stuff you need to keep in mind. But if I would say like one big piece of advice I would give to you, not necessarily the biggest, but it's really big at least, is that you want to be a nice person to work with. You want to be a friendly guy who people enjoy coming up and talking to and enjoy hiring for stuff. Because in the end, it doesn't, like, obviously it does matter if you're a good drummer or not, but like a producer or a band or whatever will pretty much every time pick the drummer that they know they can work with. A drummer that they know is a cool guy that they can easily talk with and that's open for criticism and open for ideas. They would pick that guy if he's a pretty good drummer over a guy that's a really good drummer but an absolute douchebag. You see what I mean? So it's probably better to just be a really nice person overall. That always goes a really long way. And there's other stuff too, like, you know, social media and just, of course, being a good drummer and all that stuff. But for one big piece of advice, I'd probably say that. Just be a nice guy.
Do you know of any good ways to find new band members?
Probably one of the best and most fun ways to find new band members is to check with your friends. Maybe you have a lot of different friends playing different instruments or who have just started out playing. Because like when I started out playing drums and I wanted to start a band, I just, you know, talked to my friends like, hey, I had a guy who like played some guitar and another guy who played some bass. And we just got together and kind of jammed, and eventually that turned into a band, and you know, we had a lot of fun. So if you're kind of just starting out, that's a good way to start it. Or even if you're a really good drummer, maybe you have some really good musician friends that you can get together with. But if you're looking for something a bit more serious and maybe you don't have friends who play instruments, you could go online. Like there's a lot of different websites and stuff where you can kind of apply and look for other band members, or maybe there are bands on there looking for drummers so you can just jump into an already existing band. So that's one really good way to do it, is to go online. And if you live in a bigger city where there's like an active music scene, you could go out into bars and venues and stuff and talk with people there. Like do some networking locally, and maybe there's going to be people there looking for a drummer, or I guess you can get together, you get to know some people and just jam out at some time. But so probably check with your friends at first if you have any musician friends, or I would say probably go online. There's always people looking for drummers.
Great video. I want to ask, 1, how do you set up your hi-hat? Stiffness of the top hat, distance, etc. I've been playing some jazz swing stuff using the hi-hat with my band, and I find it difficult to get the right sound from it. 2, related, do you have any tips for playing swing on the hi-hat? Thanks in advance.
I usually set the top hi-hat cymbal pretty, like, somewhere between medium tight and pretty tight. Like, depending on which pair of hi-hats I use and what sound I'm looking for, sometimes I'll have the top hi-hat, like, really tight. But you can see right now it has a little bit of sway to it. As for the distance, like, you can see it's a couple of centimeters or something. And basically, I wanted to be able to create a pretty tight and solid chick sound. If it's too tight together, I don't really get that. So for me, it's kind of like this. If I'm playing with double pedals on the kit, maybe I would have it a little bit closer, because that would allow me to have a good hi-hat sound on the open hi-hats without having to have my foot on it. And then I would probably have the top lid pretty tight, because that creates a better just open hi-hat sound when you can't really use your left foot for that. But again, for pretty much everything else, this is how I like it. Fairly like medium loose, and then a pretty big, well, not super big, but medium distance, so I can get a nice chick sound. As for the tension on the hi-hat pedal itself, I have it pretty tight because I want a really responsive hi-hat pedal. Basically, everything I put into it, I want it to activate the hi-hat immediately. Some people like to have it really loose, but I don't really get that. So that's my preference, but really the best thing I can say is just experiment with it, try different stuff, and kind of see what works best for you. Eventually you'll get a good ear for what sound you're looking for in a specific situation, and it really depends on what hi-hats you're using as well. For me, I change the settings all the time because I have 3 different pairs of hi-hats, so it really depends. But that's my settings, and I hope that helps. Let's see, second question, do you have any tips for playing swing on the hi-hat? I don't really play swing, in all honesty. I'm pretty terrible at everything jazz related, so I'm really sorry, but I really can't tell you much about that. But there's probably going to be a bunch of videos on YouTube and stuff where you could look into that for the motions you want to use and stuff, like molar technique or whatever is applicable to playing swing. But sadly, I'm not really the guy to answer that question, so I hope you can find information on that somewhere else.
Great video. My questions. 1, what drum set do you use? And 2, which drum set do you want to have? Thanks.
The kit I'm using right now is a Tama Superstar Hyperdrive Birch kit. I think they're not made in birch anymore, but this one is a used kit from a couple of years back. So this one is in birch. It has like really shallow toms and stuff. It's basically 10 by 6.5, 10 by 6.5, 12 by 7, 16 by 14, 22 by 20, and that's the kit, but the snare is a King Drums custom maple snare. It's a 10-ply 13x7 maple snare, and I absolutely love it. Right now, I would want to change these drums. I have kind of an endorsement thing going on with King Drums, and we're working on a custom kit eventually. It's probably going to take a little while though, but the idea is I'm looking for probably. So this would be answering question number 2. My dream kit would probably be like, I'm really thinking about walnut, 10, 12, 14, and 16, so double floor toms, and a 24-inch kick is what I'm thinking of right now. Haven't really decided about the depths and stuff, but a walnut kit, maybe with some re-rings on the floor toms and stuff. I'm still kind of debating what to get there, but it's gonna be a King Drums custom kit eventually, hopefully like around summer or later this year, but we'll see. That's at least the vision that I have for a dream kit right now would be 24, 10, 12, 14, 16, and I really like 13-inch snares, maybe a 14, I don't really know, but hopefully that gives you an idea.
Favorite cymbal?
It's a really tough question for me to answer, but if I had to pick one, I would probably say this one, which is the Meinl 18-inch Bisense Extra Dry Dual Crash. It's just, ever since the dual cymbals, actually the dual cymbals in general, like I really love the 10-inch dual splash as well, but since these came out, like this one has always been my dream crash sound. I just love it. It's awesome in every way, how it feels, how it sounds. So it's probably my favorite, but I'm also really biased towards the 16-inch extra dry medium thin hi-hats, which are over there right now. Those are my favorite hi-hats ever. Like I really love these, but they're just for a different sound. But if I had to pick one pair of hi-hats for everything, it would probably be those. So you see, for me, it depends on what cymbal we're talking. What cymbal type we're talking about. If it's hi-hats or crash or ride or whatever. But if I had to pick one, probably this one that I mentioned, the 18-inch dual crash.
Can you tell us about the freelancing work process? How many orders for recording do you have per month? Please tell us how that process works as a whole. Is it really possible for the drummer to have an own studio and he can do recordings at home for the whole world? Thank you.
My freelancing work process is really, it varies a lot, like from month to month or week to week or whatever. It depends on how many people, it's really based on what I do on social media for a very big part. Like especially my online teaching is based on that. If I post a lot of videos and stuff, maybe people will come to me and be like, hey, I want to take a Skype lesson or two or stuff like that. So a bit of my freelancing comes from that. And then as for gigs and stuff, every now and then I'll be offered a gig or something. That usually comes from the fact that I try to post like ads of myself and what I do on different websites, like where musicians can advertise themselves, and people looking for band members and stuff. And I usually go there and say, hey, I do, I'm a drummer, professional freelancing drummer and stuff. And sometimes I'll get gigs and studio work from that. So that's kind of the freelancing work process for me. It's like it really depends from month to month. It really varies, and this is kind of how it is. But I don't really do much chasing myself, if that makes sense. I don't write to bands and stuff and be like, hey, if you need a drummer, here I am. I don't really do that kind of stuff. So I just kind of let stuff, I try to be visible and then let people come to me, if that makes sense. As for how many orders for recording and stuff I have per month, again, it really varies. Sometimes I have a lot of recording work, like 2 albums or whatever, and it's a lot of work. And sometimes it's like nothing for a couple of months. So again, really depends. And yeah, it is possible, like the situation that I have is basically I have everything I need here to record and send my tracks to people from anywhere in the world. So if someone wants me to record for their song or their album, they'll just send me the song files and the click track and everything. I just put that together on my computer, hit record and start playing the stuff, and then send them the individual files for each microphone track, and then they can take that to mixing, and that's it. So it really works, and it's a lot of fun. You just get all the gear you need, and you can do that. It doesn't have to be an amazing studio room. This is just rehearsal space that I've made into my little drum studio. But and if you have any kind of situation at home where you can play in peace and quiet, then you could get this gear, and you can do the same thing as I am in theory. So I would look into that if I were you. It's a lot of fun.
Have you ever been in a metal band? And who are your favorite metal drummers?
I've been in a couple of metal bands over the years. Like when I just started playing drums, I formed a little metal band with some friends, just kind of jamming out, and we probably sounded really terrible. We played some kind of really extreme metal stuff, and I tried to blast beats and stuff, but I only just started playing, so I think it was pretty bad. We recorded like one song, I think. It was a really long time ago now, but it was a lot of fun. When I just started out, just jamming with friends and having fun. But then after that, I created a bit more of a serious band with some friends, and we made some pretty cool songs together. But that we eventually shut that down due to people like the singer left and stuff. So we didn't really keep that up. But then After that, I had a third metal band, which is one that I stuck with for the longest time, which was Billion Dollar Man. It's a little metal band from this town where I live here in Sweden. And I think they're still doing their thing, aside, just not with me anymore, because I quit after a while. I felt like it was metalcore, which is really what I wanted to do. So eventually I just kind of gravitated away from it. So it was better to just call it and, not continue with that. But, it was pretty fun while I was in it. But I don't really play that much metal anymore, honestly. I still listen to metal a lot, but I don't really play it as much. I don't really enjoy it as much as I used to. But when it comes to my favorite metal drummers, like Chris Adler used to be my main idol when I started with drums, and I was really into metal. Like, he was a god to me, and to an extent, I still really enjoy what he does, and he's still a big influence for me. But more recently, it's guys like Matt Garska, Anip Sastry, Matt Halpern, and these guys that I really enjoy, because they're not just metal drummers. They have a lot of different aspects and influences from different styles of music that they weave into their metal sound, which I think is really cool. So guys like that are really big influences for me when it comes to metal right now.
Hi Siros, I need a tip from your experience. In a couple of weeks I will buy my first snare drum and I don't really know what material to choose. I play metal, fusion, funk, and R&B, and I like to tune them very high. Which can I choose, wood or metal?
My preference with snare drums is wood snare drums. I don't think I've actually tried a metal snare drum, but just from what I've heard and the sound of it, usually it's not really the sound that I'm looking for, but that's just me personally. Like, this snare is a 13x7, it's a King Drums custom maple snare. So this one's from maple, but there's a bunch of different woods you can use for snares, but in all honesty, like the diameter and the depth of the snare and the head choice and all of that stuff is really gonna have probably a bigger impact on the overall snare sound than necessarily the wood, although the wood type makes a difference as well. So that's for wood, but when it comes to metal drums, same thing there. Different types of metals produce different sounds in the snare drum. I don't really know much about that in all honesty, because I just play wood snare drums for the most part. But I would say, as a general rule of thumb, like wood snares tend to be a little bit warmer, while metal snares tend to have a little bit more of they tend to be a little bit louder, I think, for the most part. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but they also tend to have a little bit more of a high-end ring to it, while wood drums, like I said, a little bit warmer, a little bit more rounded off, generally speaking. But it really depends on what snare you pick up. So I would say just do some research, find one snare that you like the sound of, doesn't matter if it's wood or metal, and just get that. In the end, material doesn't really matter. It's the end sound that you're looking for that really matters in the end. So that's my advice for you.
I struggle with space and noise where I live, and not being able to play my acoustic kit at all annoys the hell out of me. Are you renting a unit or part of a studio for your setup? Basically, how have you got yourself into a situation where you can play daily without disturbing anyone? Great material, man. Keep up the amazing work.
This room is actually basically just rehearsal space. It's I rent it for like $55 per month, which is incredibly cheap. But the main reason I can have this and have it so cheap and I have a 24-hour access and everything is because I live in a really small town. It's like 16,000 inhabitants, and that's really beneficial because, like, in a big city, there's gonna be a lot more competition. There's gonna be way higher prices and more limited options for stuff like this. So if you live in a smaller town, usually rehearsal spaces and studios like this are easier to come by. But again, it's just rehearsal space. Like, there's nothing special at all about this room. But the good thing is there's 24-hour access. I don't disturb anyone because this whole building is just a lot of rehearsal spaces and stuff. So I've been fortunate in that regard. But I waited in like an online queue or whatever to get this room for like a year. So I think, yeah, it took about a year before I got this. But I've had it since then. That was like 5-6 years ago. So I guess that's pretty much all I can tell you, really. That's the situation I have, but I don't really have much advice for how to get a situation like this, other than just, look up in your area what different people what different people and stuff have options like this that you could hire or buy or whatever, like different rooms or rehearsal spaces or anything. Just kind of look and see what options there are for you. If you're in a smaller town, it's going to be easier, but yeah, hopefully you'll find something. Alright guys, so that will be all the questions for today's Q&A video. I'll try to make another one hopefully like next week or the week after that, depending on how busy I will be. But keep asking questions. I still have a bunch of questions from Instagram and stuff that you guys have asked that I want to cover in next week's video, but I'll still probably be able to squeeze in a few more. So keep posting your questions and I will answer them when I have the opportunity. So thank you guys for tuning in for today's Q&A, and I will see you in the next video soon. Take care.